What up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans? Today we're talking Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, the running back mocked to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Alright, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, there's been a bit of talk about Ashton Jeanty. We've heard Arthur Motes talking about him. We've heard him mocked by Daniel Jeremiah in the latest mock draft to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. Yes, it would be the Steelers drafting another running back in the last 5-6 years in the first round. The bonus is, as I said when they drafted Najee, you do get that fifth-year option, right? You get 5 years with the guy. And then you normally know whether running backs run out of pace. Jeanty is a playmaker. He's Daniel Jeremiah's third best player in the NFL in terms of talent, in the NFL draft, I should say, not in the NFL, this year. Daniel Jeremiah said that on a couple of shows now. It's his third-ranked guy. So what does that mean for the Pittsburgh Steelers? What does that mean in terms of if they were to get this guy, how would he fit in? Does it matter which quarterback they have? Will he just fit in anyway? Who is this bloke? Now, Boise State as well, the college. Now, this guy's not going to be the biggest guy on the field, right? But he should be weighing about 210, 215. We may see him at the combine later in this week. We may not. We may see him do some things. We may not. Now, I think he'll be there. I think he'll do the interviews. The big thing will he do the 40 time? That's what I'm pretty interested to see as well. Now, I know some people hate PFF. I'm more of a Pro Football Reference guy. They have a college version called Sports Reference, which isn't as deep as the pro one. I did check the yards. They're pretty much the same for him on both sides. So we're going to go off some PFF stuff just to stay consistent. And they try and do a bit more on the college side of things. I know I'm supporting Chris Collinsworth, but we just got to deal with it. Now, he's a guy that has been at Boise State his whole career, 3 seasons, or college career, I should say. 3 seasons there. He has played a significant amount of snaps for them as well. He's played 1,652 snaps. So obviously that's part of the pass. He's done pass blocking. He's done run blocking, because all those things get split up. Obviously, the most amount that he's played, almost half of his snaps, is running, because he is a running back. That's really where he's lined up from that perspective. But I want to give you that sort of sense. Had his best games this season against Washington State and Utah State. Remember, obviously, from when it comes to Boise State as well, they're not playing against some always the top teams. But he did have a really good game against Oregon as well, which can't be overlooked either. And he did play against Penn State as well. So, obviously he's still got to play college football. He's still playing against good colleges. But just want to give you that perspective in terms of the sorts of teams that he played. Now, when we look at overall, I'm going to actually skip over that one. That's not the right one I want to talk about. So let's look at his production. 4,760 yards for Boise State. 821 in his first year, 1,344 in his second year, then 2,600 in the last year. Absolutely insane. 6.9 yards per average play. That's incredible. 29 TDs this year. 29 TDs and only 4 fumbles. Pretty good. Only 10 fumbles in his college career. Pretty insane. Where do we begin when we talk about those sorts of stats? Pretty incredible. Yards after contact. He had 1,970 yards after contact. Now, we should remember, obviously, as soon as you're going to break that contact, you're going to get that yardage. But there's some tape and highlights from him where he's doing some really cool stuff, where he's running through, there's a hit, and then he keeps going. It's pretty incredible play. 63 plays of 10 yards or more. Insane. Absolutely insane. There's just some incredible numbers when you really talk about what he has done offensively. Now, when you look at receiving too, this isn't a guy that's had that a deep amount. He only had 877 in his college career. Now, that's great for him to go in the NFL with. He only had 138 this year. Almost all of it was from his big, all his yardage was played from the running back position. Not even 10%, barely 5% of his yardage came from receiving. But the year before, he had 578, and he caught 44 receptions from 48 targets, so pretty good. Even this year, he caught 23 from 33, so pretty darn good as his playmaker. So obviously, when you almost, have 5,000 yards worth of production in college. That's going to be a big deal. Obviously, you're going to be a first rounder when you're at a decent college. Boise State's a decent college, if not a great college. And when you score the amount of touchdowns you score in 1 year with him, you're going to see that from a guy. Like, this guy is obviously going to be there. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows he's a playmaker. What can I tell you that's different to what someone else has told you? Let's have a chat about that. So, now, we've got to take it with a grain of salt that PFF may have got a few things here incorrect. I appreciate that, but the concept of what is here is, we can take on face value. So, when you look at this is a graph that shows you where they ran in terms of where the running back runs between the tackles. Obviously, then you've got the defensive line on the other side. Now, this is what's really unique. Okay? He had 67 attempts when he ran at the left end. So, that is this part here, right? That part there. So I should say, not the T. That part there. He had 72 on the right. 5 attempts difference. He only had 25 at left there at the left tackle side of things, and then in the gap, and then he had at the right tackle he had 25. Again, very even, right? So it tells you the way Boise State were playing. Then you look at the left guard, the left guard. Then you have 41, and you look at the right guard, and you have 41. Then you look at in the middle left, 55, and medium right, 45. So the interesting thing about that overall of those 375 is how even this is. Like, it's a very, very, very even split, right? Very even split. The quick math that I can do for you in my head when I was looking at this right before I recorded this show is that it's basically 176 on one side, and then I think so. Then the other would be like the 200, but it's pretty darn close in most areas, right? But it's actually quite insane in the same way of how basically consistent it is across them. Consistent on running to the outside, consistent on running in the middle, but then consistent on both sides. There's not a favorite of sides. That's going to be really good for Jeanty in terms of where teams that might have a better left tackle versus a right tackle, teams that might have a left hand versus a right hand quarterback. This guy's going to be able to hit both sides. It's really, really cool for him as a prospect. Like, incredible. Now, obviously, out of the 2,600 yardage, but when you look at it, he had 545 running. Sorry, I'm moving my cursor between two screens. Running at this hole, right? He had 447 running at that hole. But so they were the two most amounts. But then the third and the fourth most amounts, which equated to 663 yards, split 360 and 303, are that hole and that hole. So this guy can basically create yards inside. He creates lots of yardage outside. Now, the most amount of TDs that he had were on the left side of the field, right? He had 17 of his 29 TDs on the left side of the field, including that medium left. So basically, all these guys, and hopefully this works. I've not tried this cursor on this program, but let's see if it works. All to that side. Huge production there. His season longs were 75 at the left at that gap. Then he had 77 at the LT gap, and he had a 75 at the right gap. Right, so he's been able to punch him in. Now he had a 60 and a 63 on the further side outside of the right, but it's still pretty incredible. 2 fumbles came on the right, which I kind of thought was interesting. That's still split. There's 2 fumbles on the left, but 2 specifically came at the right, at that right end gap. So that's kind of also an interesting thing, is whether he's played a particular team there. I'd have to go back and look through all those. I don't watch a lot of Boise State football. You can imagine, in terms of what's available at college and also what's available here in Australia as well. But kind of an interesting sort of concept. So there'll be a lot of people out there that are talking about his awesome production. They'll talk about how he hits holes, that you can't bring him down, that he's super quick, that he's a playmaker, he can do all this stuff with the ball. But not a lot of people are telling you about the holes and where he can run. And what I like about this is that if you think about the Steelers and their offensive line and where they were at, we're going to see some movement in that offensive line. I'm going to talk about that in a show that comes out later this week. The Steelers could move Furtado around. Broderick could move to the left. He could stay at the right. McCormick could end up on the left if they move Furtado in, or depending on what happens with Siamalu. Frazier is there set as the center, but he's going to be in his second year. So there's a chance that you could have having a guy like Jeanty that can move around behind these guys and create plays from anywhere takes a bit of pressure off that Steelers offensive line. Now, we do have to remember that it's obviously college football versus the NFL, but he's not a big guy, not a tall guy like Najee. This guy's 5 inches, more than 5 inches, 5.5, almost 6 inches shorter than Najee as well. Low center of gravity, speedy guy. This is going to be pretty cool to see. And he's going to be 21 through the start of the season. Pretty incredible. I cannot wait to see this guy in action. And, he's whatever he does at the combine. If the Steelers go get this guy, and if they trade a couple of spots to get him, this isn't like drafting Najee Harris, who had an awesome line at Bama who opened up holes. Now, this is why I can't wait to see the 40-yard time that Ashton runs. But this is a true playmaker. And when you don't necessarily know who your quarterback's going to be, and the guy's clearly not your franchise quarterback, this is a really good guy to go and get used to your offensive line, so that when you are ready to splash the money in free agency or through a trade or through drafting a guy next year or Arch Manning the year after, or maybe Arch Manning, no, he's not eligible, to come through. But whatever it is, when you find your answer at quarterback, you could have a really top playmaker at running back as well. And you could pair him with Warren. We've seen Warren do similar things across the parts of the field as well. I'll see if I can pull that up for you. But that's the other thing, is that, like, if you think about the way that Ashton would fit within the Steelers offense, where he fits in the chemistry of the offensive line, the Steelers, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard when we're moving on from a Najee Harris. We didn't take the 5th year option. We did the 4 years. We're moving on from him. But it is definitely very interesting. Here we go. I've been able to pull it up while we've been talking. When you look at Jaylen Warren, again, very even from where he's run the football. Now, a lot in the middle, 25 middle left, 25 here, 12 here. But everything else, and then it moves 19 right guard, 15 left guard, very even. And look at the success. Let me see if I can pull up Najee, because I think his goes pretty much one way. That's going to be up the guts. Well, definitely more to the left. Najee's is actually a little bit more distributed. Fair credit where credit's due. But when you look at it, from the attempts, it's a much heavier through basically from this part onwards. So from middle right, middle left, left guard, left tackle, left end, through those holes, that's primarily where he's going. Apart from when he runs out to the right, the full right side. But you look at these two gaps, not so much. So if you have a Jaylen Warren and you have a Jeanty, you've got, Jeanty's probably got a bit more pace, I think, than Warren, but Warren can do the blocking. You've got two guys that can do a lot of stuff. Warren can do more in the passing game as well, so than Jeanty can. So I really actually like this dual situation. If you bring back Warren and then you go draft Jeanty in the first round, you're setting yourself up and you're giving yourself a running back. You're giving him a year to learn the offense behind Warren. Or however long you sign Warren for, but you give him the dynamic duo there. You're letting him build. You bring in a quarterback next year through the draft or through a big move, and you've got a guy that's experienced with an offensive line where most of them in their second or their third year. This is how you get a cheap, productive offense, and you can continue to invest in the wide receivers. I like where this is heading. I really do. So if you ask me, Pittsburgh Steelers, go freaking get the kid at 21. There's nothing to complain about at running back. And the comments have at it. I'm Matty P. As always, go Steelers.